So, I'm a 16-year-old guy still in high school. About 2 years ago, my mom married my stepdad, Dave. My mom's 41, and Dave's 43. My parents were never married to each other. They only got together for a short time after college, and they thought it would just be a brief thing. But then, my mom got pregnant with me. She decided to keep the baby, and my dad wanted to be in my life too. So they figured out a way to share taking care of me. I live with my mom for 1 month and then with my dad the next. It goes back and forth like that all year. I really love both my parents, and I know they've both given up a lot just to make sure they could be there for me. One of the biggest things they've done is they both stayed living in the same city. This makes it easier for me to move between their houses without it being a huge hassle. I didn't know this when I was younger, but now I understand that both of them passed up some big job opportunities just to stay close to each other and to me. They did all this just for me. My mom even turned down a bunch of guys who really liked her because she wanted to focus on raising me instead of getting married and having to juggle her job, a new husband, and everything else that comes with that. I learned all this stuff from Dave, kind of indirectly. He's not the greatest stepdad, to be honest. My mom has been telling me all these things because she wants me to try to get along with Dave. She thinks that since she made all these sacrifices for me, I should be able to make a little effort to accept him. But it's tough, because it's not like I asked her to make those sacrifices for me. She could have made different choices, like not having me or letting my dad raise me by himself. But anyway, I never argued with her about any of this because I love her and I want her to be happy. So I was ready to accept Dave even though he was not a very nice guy. And by not a very nice guy, I don't mean that he is mean to me in any way. I just mean that he doesn't like me and doesn't bother to hide it. I don't know what kind of 42-year-old has issues with a 16-year-old guy, but he definitely does. I don't know why he doesn't like me because I never did anything to piss him off. As a matter of fact, I've always tried to be nice to him because that's how my family raised me, to be nice to everybody, even when they show you that they don't like you. He never speaks to me rudely and never makes comments about me. The reason behind that is that he doesn't speak to me at all. He pretends like I don't exist in the family, and this has been going on for the past 3 years. I literally have no idea what I ever did to piss him off. One day he just decided that he was not going to speak to me and was going to start acting like I was not there at all. It is the weirdest thing in the world, and I'm not really used to this kind of treatment. It's like he's giving me the cold shoulder for something, but I don't know what it is. So I can't even fix my behavior because I don't even know what his problem with me is. My mother says that's just the way he is. He does not have a problem with me, but he doesn't necessarily like me either. However, I feel like if you don't like somebody, there should at least be a reason for it, especially when you're 42 and the other person is literally just 16. I guess it has something to do with the dynamics of me being my mother's first child or whatever. I don't even know. But the bottom line is that he does not like me, and he has made it very obvious. Earlier, we used to get on okay. The first couple of times that he came home, he would interact with me and ask me all sorts of questions about my life. I would be very polite and answer him. But after one visit, he just decided that he was not going to speak to me. It was very random, and I did not understand why he did that at the time. I did not question it because I thought maybe he had just forgotten to say hi to me or whatever. But then it happened so many times it became hard to ignore. So I even asked my mother if I had done something to make him angry because he was acting like I was not there in the house. He would turn his face away every time I entered the living room or any room that he was in. She did not tell me anything about it. She just said that he was trying to wrap his head around the fact that now he would have to deal with me being there all the time. Maybe he was just not used to it because before this, he had only dated women who did not have kids. I found that hard to believe because he himself had 2 kids. He had 2 sons, one was 15 and the other was 12. Their mother had passed away in an accident after the younger sibling was born. Also, it was not true that I would be there all the time because, as I had mentioned above, I used to go to my dad's house to live with him every other month. But anyway, a few months passed that way, and eventually I just accepted the fact that this was how he was, and he was not going to speak to me anymore. After a year of being in a relationship, he proposed to my mother, and they got married a few months later. After their marriage, Dave moved into the house with his kids. Before that, I had only met his children a couple of times, and even they had been taught by their father not to speak to me. It was just so crazy, and I don't even know how I dealt with that for so long. For years, as a matter of fact. Before getting married, Dave and my mother used to live separately because Dave's mother was really sick, and she used to live with them. But after they got married, he decided to move her in with his sister so she would be able to take care of her. He moved in with my mom into our house with his children. I don't know if any of you guys have ever experienced this, but it's really not easy to live in the same house with a bunch of people who won't talk to you and pretend that you don't even exist. But I had to put up with that, and it made me feel really bad because I felt like I was a criminal of some sort, judging by the way they treated me. The worst part was that I never got to find out what I did wrong in the first place. I still have no idea, but at least I'm not living with them anymore, so it doesn't matter anyway. Years passed, and their behavior did not change. Even though I got used to it, I was already used to Dave not speaking to me whenever he would come over to visit my mother, which was quite frequent. And after they got married, I got used to him and his kids living in the same house with me and not speaking to me. Every time I would go to my mother's place, I would have to prepare myself mentally to only talk to my mother for the next couple of weeks. She was the only person who would speak to me in that house. And everybody else pretended like I was not there, like I was invisible. It was hurtful, but I did want to spend time with my mother, so I had to deal with it because I knew that she was not going to talk to Dave about it. Trust me, I had tried to convince her numerous times to talk to him about it and get to the bottom of this, or at least try to solve it, but she told me that she had already spoken to him about it, and there were a couple of personal reasons that she could not disclose to me. That's why he refused to acknowledge my existence in the house, and she could not do anything about it. She understood where he was coming from, and she also understood why I felt bad about it, but I would just have to suck it up and deal with it. If I tried to argue with her or stand up for myself, she would get all emotional and tell me that I was being ungrateful because I was overlooking the fact that she had made so many sacrifices for me, so I could surely just give Dave a pass for behaving with me the way that he did, and just deal with it for her sake. I wanted to fight with her, but I did not want to hurt her feelings. I never even told my father about any of this because I knew that if he found out about it, he would be very upset and would definitely drag my mother for this. They were very different people and had very different ideas on how to bring me up. So they kept having little arguments and fights, but I knew that something this huge would probably lead to my father filing for full custody or something extreme. I did not want to stir up drama, so I avoided telling him and pretended that everything was fine with my mother and her new family. Dave and my mother had been together for 1 year before they got married, and it has been 2 years since they have been living together. So I have been putting up with this sort of behavior for 3 years now, and I've been pushed to my limit and stretched very thin. Recently, what happened really pushed me off the edge, and I decided that I was no longer going to put up with this. Last month, I was supposed to be spending the month at my mother's house, and as usual, Dave and his kids had been ignoring me. I was already going through a rough patch because I have been fighting with a couple of my friends from school, and I was really not in the right headspace at the time. So about 2 weeks ago, when I woke up one morning and I realized that the house was absolutely empty, I started losing my mind over it. Even up until the night before, everything had been normal, or as normal as it gets in my mother's house. They had been all talking to each other and ignoring me, but there was no mention of them going anywhere at the time. But when I woke up the next morning and saw that the house was empty, I immediately called my mother up to ask about it. I had no idea where they were, but thankfully my mother did answer the call. When I asked what they were playing at, she told me that she, Dave, and the kids were going out on a little trip for the week and asked me to stay in the house and take care of it. I'm on summer break right now, so I don't have school and don't really have to go anywhere, but I don't think it's appropriate to leave me at home all by myself and expect me to act like a watchdog. I was not on board with that plan and told my mother I was not ready to stay at home all day and watch the house. If she wanted something like that, she probably should have just amped up the security around her house instead of tricking me into staying home. I was also just mostly upset that they had not even told me about their plan to go out on the road trip and left me at home all by myself. They didn't even have the courtesy of letting me know about it beforehand so I could decide for myself if I wanted to do it or not. I probably just would have said yes because as a high school guy, there is literally nothing more that we want than an empty house all to ourselves. I probably would have invited a couple of my friends over and lived it up for a few days. But I was so pissed off that I didn't even feel like doing that because my mother was treating me like crap, and it made me feel really bad. I was also fighting with my friends, so I did not really have anybody to invite at the time, and I was just going through an overall bad time. I told my mother that she needed to apologize to me for doing this. I could understand that Dave did not like talking to me, but the bare minimum they could do was at least tell me that they were going out somewhere before they left. It was not very nice to just wake up one morning and realize that you were all alone. She told me that I was making a big deal out of this and that I needed to get over it. She did not even wait for me to respond. She just hung up the call. When I tried to call her back, she did not accept it and texted me back saying that she was trying to enjoy her trip and that she would talk to me once she was at the hotel. I was so upset about everything that I decided to leave. I knew that it would mean that the house would be completely empty, but I didn't care. I had tried to call my mother after that to let her know that I was leaving, but she did not answer my call and everything went straight to voicemail. So I locked up the house and kept the keys under a potted plant, which my mother usually does when she leaves. Then I went over to my dad's place to live with him. Once I got there, he was actually surprised to see me back so early because he had expected me to return after 1 week since I was supposed to be living with my mother until the end of the month. But I had had enough, so I just came back to him and ended up telling him everything that had been going on. I told him all about Dave and his ridiculously cold behavior around me and how he had even trained his kids not to talk to me. I felt like I had done something wrong, but I didn't even know what, and it was getting on my nerves. Then I told him how my mother did not even want to talk to him about this and just let everything go on the way it was, no matter how much it hurt me. Her excuse was that she believed he had his personal reasons and they were valid, but she was not even willing to tell me what those reasons were so I could make sense of what was going on around me. I had put up with this for long enough just for my mother's sake. I wanted her to be happy, and she kept reminding me that she had made so many sacrifices for me in her life, so I could do this for her. But this was getting way too much to take. I was not going to tolerate it anymore, and I was done. I had to tell my father about it because he deserved to know what my mother was putting me through. Maybe he would be able to do something about the situation because I was just so sick and tired of being treated like this, even when I had not done anything to piss anyone off. I had always tried my best to be kind and compassionate towards everybody. Then I told him about how my mother had left me at home alone without even telling me that she, her husband, and his kids were going out. She just expected me to agree to take care of the house, make sure everything was in its place, and live on my own for the next week just because she wanted to take a trip. That was not even my biggest problem. My problem was she did not even think it was important to tell me about it. When I tried to talk to her, she just kept hanging up and declining my calls like I was not even important to her. She had really crossed a line, and I couldn't put up with this anymore. After I was done telling my father about all of this, I started crying because I didn't realize just how much all of this had been weighing on me for the past couple of years. I did have a normal relationship with my mother before that, but after she got together with Dave, everything changed and nothing was the same anymore. I felt like I was insignificant to her, and it was very difficult for me to accept. After venting to my father about all of this, he just said one thing to me. He was going to take care of everything for me now. He was obviously very upset, but whatever he had to say to my mother, he did not say any of it to me. He just told me that he was really glad that I had shared this with him, and now it was all off my chest. He told me that I was going to be living with him. If I wanted to go back to my mother, that was my choice, but he would not suggest doing that to me. Anyway, I'd been living with him, and I did not try to call my mother after that day. The funny part was that she didn't try to call me either. The least she could have done was try to keep in touch with her son, whom she had left at home all on his own while she traveled with her new family. I was really emotionally hurt by what she was doing, but after speaking to my father, I was feeling considerably lighter, and I had decided that I was not going to let this bother me. For about 5 days, we had no contact. Then, when she finally called me, I thought it was going to be to check up on me. But when I answered the call, she was yelling at me at the top of her lungs. It took me a few seconds to realize that she was yelling at me because I had left the house and they had been robbed. Apparently, a lot of stuff that they had left in the house was now gone, including the television and a couple of other expensive items. For some reason, she was blaming me for all of it. I don't know why she was doing that, because I had tried to call her and inform her that I was leaving and was going to stay with my father. After she had stopped yelling, I told her that I was not happy about the way she had been treating me. I had tried to contact her several times after she had hung up, but she kept declining my calls. She told me that I could have texted her, and as valid as her point was, I told her that I didn't do it on purpose because I was mad. I thought it was very obvious, and I had made it very clear to her that I was upset, so she should not have expected me to stay back in the first place. We got into a massive fight about it because she believed that I should have stayed at home no matter how angry or upset I was, because this was a matter of safety. She had been trusting me and counting on me, but I did not tell her to do that. In fact, I had tried my very best to let her know that I was leaving, and I did not want to stay at home alone, but she disregarded all of my calls. So now she had to pay the price for it. These were the consequences of her actions, not mine. I found it very ridiculous that they were trying to blame this all on me, including Dave. The first time that he spoke to me in the last couple of years, it was only to yell at me and blame me for my carelessness. He said a couple of other very confusing things as well, like he had always known that I would be the cause of ruin for them. I don't even know what that is supposed to mean because we don't even interact. I don't know how he came to that conclusion without even speaking to me. Anyway, my parents are now fighting because my dad thinks that this is my mom's fault, and so do I. But she thinks that this is my fault, and now my mother is demanding that my father pay her for the damages, since she thinks that if he is defending me for doing this, he should be ready to pay the price for it. I don't understand what to do now, and she will only drop it if I at least apologize to her and her family. I don't want to do that, but I also don't want her to keep bothering my father either. After leaving my mother's house unoccupied to go live with my father because she and my stepdad left me home alone to go on a trip with his family without even bothering to inform me, a lot of things have come to light since then. First of all, I was finally able to figure out why Dave hated me so much. Apparently, as it turns out, when they had first started dating, Dave had asked my mother if he could bring his mother over to live with them. My mom had said no because she was not comfortable with the idea of them moving in together so soon, and definitely not okay with the idea of her mother-in-law, who was ailing, to come live with her. She thought that it would be too much work for her and was not up for it. Even though Dave had made it very clear that she had a full-time nurse to look after her and she just needed people to be around for her emotional needs, my mother was already not ready to move in with Dave and be together. She did not want the extra baggage of having her mother-in-law live with her. But instead of being upfront with him, she pinned it all on me. This was about 3 months into their relationship. They were getting pretty serious about each other at that point, even though I think it was way too soon for them. But anyway, that's my mother's choice, and I don't want to comment on that. She had basically lied to Dave and told him that she would be okay with him moving in with her and bringing his mom and kids along to live with us, but she was not sure if it was such a good idea because of me. She had made me sound like some juvenile delinquent and told him that she had dated a couple of men in the past, but they had all been driven away because of me. Apparently, I terrorized her boyfriends because I wanted to protect her and keep everybody away, since I still believed that I could reunite my parents, and she did not want to break my heart. She also did not want Dave's mother to suffer because of me, because she had told him that I had a lot of comments to make about his family. She had told Dave that I had referred to his mother as a useless burden on the family, and I had told her that if she moved in with us, then I would make sure that she suffered for it. Something that I would never say because that's just not me, and I know how insensitive it is. Apparently, I had referred to his kids as little evil goblins who were going to ruin our family. Obviously, after that, he had stopped interacting with me at all because he did not want anything to do with me. He had actually believed my mother, even though I had always acted very normally around him, and he had no reason to believe her. I found out about it a couple of days ago, since Dave had been pushing my mother to disown me and cut all ties with me because of what I had done, and thought that it was about time. But she did not want to do that, so she finally had to come clean to him. And now they are living separately because Dave could not believe that he had been treating me so badly over a bunch of lies that my mother had fed him. Just because she was too afraid to tell him the truth, that it was she who was against having his sick mother live with them, and not me. In that email, He even mentioned that he would not have had an issue if my mother had been honest with him and told him that she did not have the bandwidth to deal with a sick person in the house. He would have just spoken to his sister and made sure that they took turns taking care of their mom. But she chose to lie to him and made up such a horrible story about me that he believed and kept mistreating me. He sent me an email to apologize to me for everything that he had put me through and hoped that I would forgive him. I have not responded to it yet because I don't know how to feel about any of this right now. I just want to keep my head clear and not think about any of this at the moment. Anyway, that's why he had been mistreating me for so long, and my mother had been allowing it. In fact, it had been working out in her favor perfectly, and she had been feeding him all sorts of lies about how I kept getting in trouble at school. He never even questioned it because he trusted her blindly. We never spoke, so he never found out that I was actually quite a normal guy, and that kept my mother's cover from getting blown. She is one twisted lady, I have to say that. My father is now filing for full custody after we got to know all of this, and my mother is devastated because she claims that she loved us and wanted us to be a happy family together. But I'm sorry, you can't have a happy family on your own terms and ruin everybody else's life. Jake, my mom's current husband, is also filing for divorce from her. I stumbled upon this huge mess because my mom has been desperately sending messages to my dad. She's basically pleading with him to have a chat with Jake to try and fix their marriage because she claims she can't bear the thought of losing all of us. But to be honest, I'm really confused about why she would think any of us would want to stay and help her out after everything she's allowed to happen for so many years. She stood by and did nothing while I was treated poorly. Worse, she was the one spreading lies about me to Jake, which only fueled his and his family's dislike towards me. It's truly heartbreaking to think about, especially coming from your own mother. No one should ever have to go through being betrayed and talked down by their own parent. I spent countless nights trying to figure out what I had done to deserve such hostility from Jake and his family. What could I possibly have done to make them hate me so much? But the truth eventually hit me. I hadn't done anything at all. My mom had been manipulating the story to make herself look better, or maybe to keep her marriage with Jake smooth on her end without any regard for how it was affecting me. This realization was tough, and it led me to a difficult decision. I've decided to cut off all contact with her. I blocked her number, her social media, everything. I just can't subject myself to any more of her deceit and manipulation. It's a heartbreaking decision, especially because despite everything, I did love her. I wanted her to be happy, and I put up with so much nonsense and pain because of that love. For years, I kept thinking her happiness mattered more than mine. I put her first, hoping that maybe, just maybe, she would start to appreciate me and love me the way a mother should. But it became painfully clear that she was only focused on her own happiness. It's a harsh truth, but I've come to accept it. So here I am, no longer willing to sacrifice my own well-being for hers. It's not an easy shift to make, but it's necessary for my own peace and happiness. Now both of us are on the same page, her focusing on her happiness and me finally on mine. The tables have turned and I'm ready to move forward without that weight on my shoulders. It's time I put myself first for a change. It's all over the news in my circle. Jake, my mom's husband, has officially filed for divorce. Like literally. That's all anyone can talk about right now. My family, some friends that both my parents know, just about everybody. Now, my mom is handling this whole divorce thing in a pretty odd way. Instead of maybe talking to people directly or trying to sort things out quietly, she's all over social media posting these really sad quotes. It's like every day there's a new gloomy post from her, and I know this because my cousins keep sending me screenshots of her posts. I guess they think I should see what's going on. Or maybe they just find it as weird as I do. I'm not really sure what my mom is hoping to achieve by sharing all these sad quotes. Maybe she thinks it'll get her some sympathy, or maybe even change Jake's mind. But honestly, posting sad stuff online isn't really going to fix the problems they have. It seems like she's just trying to get people to feel sorry for her. But here's the thing. She played a big part in how everything turned out. It's like there's an old saying that fits perfectly here. You made your bed, now you have to lie in it. That means she's made some choices, maybe not the best ones, and now she has to deal with the consequences of those choices, even if they're pretty tough. So while all these posts might make her feel a bit better or get her some attention, they're not really going to change the situation. The divorce is happening, and those sad quotes on social media aren't going to stop it. It's a tough spot for everyone involved, and it's kind of messy to see it all unfold like this, especially in such a public way. It's been a few months now, and my dad officially has full custody of me. My mom did try really hard to fight for custody, but with the divorce and all the drama that came with it, things got really complicated for her. Plus, we had a lot of evidence showing the stuff she had put me through, so honestly, she didn't really have much of a chance to win the case. Her lawyer did manage to keep the case going for a couple of months, though. Now that my dad has full custody, I don't have to visit my mom unless I choose to. She still has the right to see me sometimes, like on certain weekends or holidays. That's what visitation rights mean. But to be honest, I don't really see the point because I don't even want to talk to her anymore. I'm doing much better now that I'm just living with my dad. Life has been pretty good. I've also patched things up with my friends, which feels great. It's like I'm finally getting back to normal, you know? I'm really looking forward to moving on from all the tough stuff that happened and just focusing on good things ahead.